NATO has agreed on a massive increase in defense spending to 5% of GDP to try to stave off the threat of Vladimir Putin's Russia and keep Donald Trump committed to the alliance. But is that 5% target all that it seems, or is it just skin deep? Well, debates are emerging in countries around Europe about how to meet those targets, whether to meet those targets. And in one country, Slovenia, those debates have hit a new level, with coalition infighting about the target, even calls for a referendum on whether to hit that target and whether even to remain a member of NATO. Could a small country like Slovenia be a place where this whole plan starts to unravel? We've been speaking to the Foreign Minister of Slovenia, Tanja Fajon. Tanja Fajon, thank you very much for speaking to DW. Slovenia, your country, spent just 1.3% of GDP on defense last year, according to the latest NATO estimates. So it's very far away from this new NATO target of 5%. Is Slovenia committed to that target?
I have to correct you. I think the latest data is 1.53. But
well, this
never
is the
mind.
data from
Yes,
NATO's own
yes.
latest website figures.
We are very much aware we have to do more, and we are committed to do more. And we have a goal to reach 2% of the defense budget expenditure by the end of this year. And we have also the government agreement to spend 3% by the end of 2030. So that is why it is not an easy discussion back in Slovenia how we will spend this money, and also at the latest NATO summit we clearly said that we are a credible, responsible member of NATO, it is our collective security, and that we will try our best. The discussion back at home is mostly focused how to get this money, not to go into the account of the social state, cohesion, or the budget. We will have to use some extra European mechanisms, but as I said, we have to do more and we are committed to do more.
But your party, the Social Democrats, was opposed to signing up to that increase to 5%, and also Levica, the further left party within your coalition. So clear divisions within that coalition. Do you really stand behind that commitment to the 5% target?
We have the only commitment and the only document that was adopted at the government and in the parliament, 3% by end of 2030. And then we also know that we will have to be further deciding how to come to spend more, but currently it's about 3%. What was happening in Slovenia are the internal domestic discussions inside the government with the opposition, and we are very much aware as the political party and as the government that we have to have a serious debate with our citizens to explain where we will get the money and in what we will spend it. But as I said, the only obligatory document that the government has is to 3% by the end of 2030. And now what was in NATO, we signed political declaration, or we agreed on a political declaration, but knowing that there are some mechanisms to review in 2029 the percentages, so we will have to deal still in the future how to increase the budget. But to be very frank, we have this discussion, which means that it's about 20% of our budget if we go up to 5%. So this is still, you know, the period is extended. For us now the commitment is to get to 2% this year and 3% by 2030, and also to understand that we want to, you know, extend the use, like a dual use, to invest in infrastructure, to invest in artificial intelligence, mechanisms to fight cyber hybrid attacks, port of copper, etc. So everything that can be also in use.
But I still want to come back to this political discussion, because both your party and the further left party within the coalition signed up to holding a referendum on this target you talk about of 3% by the year 2030. Why do you want to take that decision to the people? And don't you think if every country held a referendum on military spending, would NATO get anywhere?
You mean that there is a discussion of several referendums in the country also one that is announced on the membership at NATO.
Yes.
I would put
So that's
everything
from the
in the
Prime
context and it's a current debate in Slovenia, that people want to have clear information. What the government is committed, what are our obligations. And believe me, it's an internal domestic debate. No one is questioning the membership of Slovenia at NATO, me personally not, neither our party, but inside our coalition. We have one coalition partner that is from the very beginning out of any discussion and any vote on NATO, and this is the far left party. So this is no news about NATO, that was always the case. And now we will also sort out this discussion. I'm pretty sure it's also in the light of, how to clear all the discussions we had in the summit, and also you have to put it in the context maybe of the upcoming elections. But to be very clear, there is a quite substantive support to NATO membership. There is no question about that. And also awareness that we will do more, and we are committed to do more.
But you say it's an internal political discussion. Obviously, this has very big implications for all of the NATO member states. If one country looks like it's wobbling on its commitments, first of all, to spending, and the Prime Minister, as you mentioned, brought in the idea of actually holding a referendum on the very membership of NATO, this looks like you say, there's an election next year. Are you playing politics with the defense security of Europe and NATO?
Once again, we have commitments in Slovenia, and this is very clear. The government is committed to do more. It's committed to invest more. We are doing modernization and reform of Slovenian army by 2040. We have clear goals how to increase the money, but also we have to understand that we have budget as it is. Our military budget today is higher than any Baltic countries that is spending. So we will have to go step by step according to our GDP, and we announced that. And in Brussels and in NATO, they are very glad to see what we are doing. There is no objections and no whatsoever discussion whether we are credible member of NATO. We are, and we are a responsible member of NATO. We understand in Slovenia that it's about our collective security. No one is questioning that. But our security means also invest in infrastructure, invest in satellites. We just became a member of European Space Agency. There we see also potential of building our resilience back at home. And this is also not only that everyone sees, it's just the question of investing in military equipment, but also in other equipment that can be used.
And that's part of the NATO agreement from the NATO summit.
And no one is questioning neither our commitment to NATO, Slovenia's, or any other countries that have equal discussions in the society. I don't find any country that will have an easy discussion when it comes to increase the military expenditure, especially on the account of a strong social state.
I just want to move on to some other issues, but just to pick up, you just said that Slovenia spends more on its military than any Baltic country.
To some information, yes. If you looked according to GDP of the country.
I'm sorry, but if you look at the figures, the Baltic states spend a much higher proportion than 1.5%, which you just
announcing on what and where we will get. If you put now 5%, it means 20% of our budget. Put the numbers together and you get the different context.
Let's step back and just look at the reason for all of this. And this is the perceptions of a threat emanating from Russia. German military leaders have talked about Russia potentially, Vladimir Putin wanting to test Article 5 in the next 3, 5, 7 years, this kind of time frame. Do you see that risk too?
We see that Russia is a serious threat, absolutely. That is why the NATO alliance and the strength of NATO alliance and unity is very important. As I said, for Slovenia, this is the collective security. And seeing that we are, not very far from Ukraine, we are supporting Ukraine in all ways, and we will do so as long as it takes. I was recently in Odessa. I had a chance to speak with Zelensky. I was several times in Kiev, and we are hosting many refugees also orphans, we are trying to help by all means. And not only how to achieve immediate and unconditional ceasefire, that is for us a top priority to end violations of international law, end of killing of citizens, innocent civilians, and destroying infrastructure, but also how to create the conditions for meaningful negotiations for peace. And we are talking also as a non-permanent member of the Security Council with many global partners to increase the pressure on Moscow to stop these attacks in Ukraine and really to start talking for peace.
And of course, a big news on that front this week was Donald Trump's decision to allow the transfer of American weapons if they're paid for by the Europeans. Will Slovenia be contributing money to that?
Slovenia has bilateral commitments that we have signed, and we so far adopted all the measures on the EU level. So here are no doubts. We are doing as any other EU country, and we did also substantial support to Ukraine by now. Everyone knows, and especially in Kiev, they are very grateful for that. So as regards new decisions on the weapons depends on what you are saying. I know that there is a discussion with Trump selling Patriots to Ukraine. The question who is paying, I know that Germany is deciding to pay something, but I have to tell you frankly that many ministers were questioning where the Europe will get the money, who is going to pay that. So these questions will have to be addressed, and I see still quite some uncertainty around.
But Slovenia, in principle, would it be prepared to contribute funds?
We are contributing what is agreed on the EU level. And what are our bilateral commitments? So there is no other discussion.
On a side note, in his discussion with Mark Rutte, Donald Trump mentioned Melania Trump, one of the most famous Slovenian-born people in the world, saying it sounded like, the way he told the story, she was quietly lobbying in the background for more support for the Ukrainians by talking about Putin's attacks on civilians. Are you glad to see Melania Trump apparently using her influence in that way?
I mean, frankly, I really cannot comment that because I really don't know what Melania and what is her influence on Donald Trump. But yes, it's good to know that we have a First Lady. Even though in Slovenia we do not expect in a very near future her visit, she would be very welcomed in any case. But it is the First Lady, whatever the relation is. We have to acknowledge that US as a partner to Europe is very important, also to Slovenia. We are having close relations, but we also are living in some new reality. Mm-hmm. And this new reality in geopolitics is something that we are all challenged. We do need allies, we do need partners, and mostly partners that do respect international law, UN Charter, the world order, and not just things that are focused on transactional relations or trade relations.
But are you encouraged by Donald Trump's apparent pivot in his view of Vladimir Putin and the Ukraine war?
I mean, I'm encouraged with the position of US when they really try to engage for a ceasefire and for negotiations for peace. I think Europeans and US, we have to work together in that and have the leverage. And Trump recently, with his rhetoric, also his words with Putin were not very friendly. So we need the support of US here, that is very clearly, and have to work together. But every day brings something new. Let's put it like that.
I want to speak finally about the situation between Israel and Gaza. This has been a high priority for Slovenia in its foreign policy recently. I mean, you've been pushing for a much tougher line on a European level against Israel over what you see as humanitarian law breaches in Gaza. Tell us what you're calling for.
Slovenia is calling for an immediate ceasefire. We see every day civilians being killed. We are calling for a release of hostages. We are calling for, and I know there are also German hostages, we are calling for humanitarian aid, substantial humanitarian aid, because there is starvation, there is famine, and there is forced displacement of Palestinians. We see clear signs also of genocide. You do not need to be an expert to acknowledge that. And we are against any forced displacement. We are very worried what is happening on the West Bank with illegal annexation, with the settlers' violence, and we are calling for serious discussions on a two-state solution. We will have a conference now in New York on two-state solution because we see that as the only guarantee for the safety of Israelis and Palestinians living side by side. It is nothing against Israeli population, but it's against this current government.
Yeah, but of course the Israeli government strongly disputes that claim that genocide is being committed in Gaza, and many countries around the world also dispute that. You're also far apart from Germany on the issues, because I mean you've been talking about saying there should be an arms embargo on Israel. You've been saying that there should be a suspension of the EU's association agreement, so this vehicle for cooperation between the European Union and Israel. So you're far apart from, say, Germany's position here. What's your message to Germany? Can you understand that because of Germany's historic debt to the Jewish people, to the state of Israel, emanating from its responsibility to the Holocaust, that Germany will inevitably take a different position on some of these issues?
I don't think that the positions are that different when we discuss in the EU.
Well,
we all call the same things. We all call the same things, the same four messages that I said. But to be very frank, a month ago we had a review of association agreement, the Article 2 on human rights. We clearly got the report that is finding out violations of international law. Israel is violating international law. It is written in the report, and people are watching us. So if the EU is not reacting on this, we are losing our credibility. And inside the EU, what we are saying is we have to act. We have proofs. We have a report. There are several measures on the table. We have to agree on something, because to be very frank, all around the globe, countries, yesterday was a Hague meeting, a group of Hague countries deciding on measures. They are really criticizing us of having double standards. I do try to understand countries that think different or have maybe historical reasons to think different. But what we are currently watching on the ground is people day by day being killed while distributing food, having no access to medicine, to water, to electricity. You heard some ministers saying about building the camp in Rafah to forcibly displace people there, or forcibly displace them outside, or calling them animals. I mean, all that, I believe we have, as all countries that are part of Genocide Convention, responsibility, moral and legal responsibility to prevent such actions. Are we doing it? I'm asking.
Tania Fajon, thank you very much for speaking to DW today.
Thank you.